Tonight, something that wasn't supposed to be possible happened again. A low, fast shape skimmed the tree line. Russia's radars blinked, and a bright industrial node on the map of Bryansk turned into a column of heat. Not a drone swarm looking for headlines. An old-school message sent with a modern British accent. Storm Shadow. If you thought Ukraine would pause deep strikes until it got American Tomahawks, the blast wave from Bryansk says otherwise. Ukraine executed a coordinated, multi-axis strike against the Bryansk chemical plant, an industrial complex that feeds Russia's war machine with energetic compounds and components used in propellants, explosives, and rocket fuels. The attack followed a turbulent news cycle. Talk of Tomahawks, then no Tomahawks, and a canceled high-profile summit that had some observers predicting a lull. Instead, Kyiv signaled the opposite. Range is optional when your target set is still inside 150 to 180 miles of your airspace. Ukraine's general staff publicly acknowledged a combined missile and air strike on October 21st, coordinated across the Air Force, Land Forces, Navy, and other defense units. Multiple outlets tied the weapon choice to Storm Shadow/SCALP, the Anglo-French cruise missile adapted for Ukrainian aircraft. Additional same-night fires and power hits were recorded in nearby regions. Whether those were part of the same strike package or opportunistic follow-ons is not yet officially confirmed. The facility's output touches the munitions Russia relies on to sustain its long-range strike tempo. Everything from the boring, building blocks of gunpowder for artillery to higher-energy mixes needed for rockets and missile stages. Knock out a plant like this, and you don't just make firefighters busy. You extend the reload time for entire sectors of Russian fires. Through 2024 to 2025, Russia layered industrial policy onto the battlefield, longer work shifts, reactivated lines, import substitution, and dual-use capture of civilian firms. It pushed novel mixes like glide bomb kits grafted onto legacy bombs and hybrid munitions that bridge gaps in precision. The common denominator is chemistry, binders, stabilizers, propellants, and explosives that must be produced, purified, stored, and moved. Each of those verbs is vulnerable. Bryansk is one of the places where chemistry becomes weaponry. At 80 miles from Ukraine's northern border, Bryansk sits inside Storm Shadow's reachable envelope when launched from within Ukrainian airspace. That geography matters. It means Kyiv can threaten it repeatedly without exposing aircraft to suicidal profiles deep over Russia, especially if the approach is masked by terrain, EW, and timing windows when local sensors are cold or busy. We don't publish OPSEC-sensitive details, but the broad outlines of how missiles beat defenses are well established. Storm Shadow flies low, navigates by a blend of inertial/GPS/terrain mapping, and profiles its terminal approach to stress radar-guided interceptors. Low altitude compresses reaction time. Terrain masking creates line-of-sight gaps. Multi-vector or multi-wave tactics split defender attention. Decoys and drones saturate radars with cheap problems, so the expensive interceptors never meet the real threat. Moscow can't be strong everywhere at once. After years of attrition, Russia has lost a significant number of air defense launchers and radars, and has redeployed others to protect big-ticket sites, bomber bases, critical metros, oil infrastructure, and command nodes. That triage leaves industrial mid-tier targets like Bryansk with thinner, patchier coverage, local short-range systems, older sets, or units that work on paper until saturation and geometry show up in the real world. The key insight from Ukraine's deep strike learning curve is discipline. Pick targets that change the war's arithmetic, line up multi-domain enablers, then fire only what you must. When the missile costs 7 figures, the target must be worth 8, or must force the adversary to spend 9 to defend it next time. There were 2 messages in the Bryansk plume. First, to Moscow. Tomahawks would have been nice. They were never required. Kyiv is telling Russia that target density inside Storm Shadow range is still high. Chemical plants, rail choke points, repair yards, depot farms, transformer fields, and specialized machine lines. Russia's home front is not immune just because Washington's debate produced a not now on a specific missile. Second, to partners. If you want faster change, help us compress the cycle. Britain and France already did the heavy lift by transferring Storm Shadow/SCALP and helping integrate them on Ukrainian airframes. More rounds, sustained spares, and continued adaptation. Those are the multipliers. The Bryansk kit shows there is a viable long-range tool in hand and a long target list ahead. The industrial war is a marathon of sprints. The side that can sprint more often, confidently, and precisely writes winter's headlines. The strike will not go unanswered. Expect dispersal and deception, decoy equipment in factory yards, redistributed chemicals to multiple smaller storage sites, new berms and sheds, more camouflage nets over railheads, and lighting cut or fake to distort thermal signatures. Expect air defense reshuffles, short-range systems moved closer to industrial clusters, pop-up SAM ambushes along known ingress corridors, and tighter command links to speed engagements against low flyers. There will also be propaganda pivots, claims that damage was minimal, that the site produced civilian goods, or that defenders shot down most missiles. The physics still bite. A single penetrator that reaches the right chamber, pump, or switchyard can create weeks of outage and months of ripple effects up the supply chain. The Kremlin's problem is compounded by time. Rebuilds are slow, and Ukraine now has a recipe it can repeat. Every year since 2022, Russia has tried to win winter by flipping the lights off in Ukraine. Missiles plus drones against power generation and distribution. Kyiv has learned to harden, rewire, and repair at speed. But the best defense is to lower the volume of incoming. By striking fuel and explosive supply chains in Russia, Ukraine subtracts future barges before they exist. If a plant like Bryansk can't quietly deliver on schedule, certain munitions arrive later or in fewer numbers. Some never arrive at all. Think like a staff officer. One storm shadow equals one expensive, scarce shot. If it disables a piece of industrial kit that would have fed thousands of shells or dozens of rockets, the trade is favorable. If it forces Russia to spend multiple interceptors, deploy new batteries, and redesign rail flows, the trade gets better. Strategy is math. Ukraine is turning Russia's mass into obligations. Defend more sites, build more decoys, burn more SAMs, accept more risk elsewhere. Early in the full-scale war, Ukraine's deep reach was limited. Long drones, a few legacy missiles, and daring sabotage. Today, long-range strike is a system, not a stunt. It blends Western missiles, fast-iterating domestic drones, better targeting, and a unified command picture that assigns the right tool to each node. The result is a campaign that manages Russian risk. Hit propellant 1 month, transformers the next, rail loaders the next, forcing Moscow to chase multiple fires with finite hoses. Some damage reports will be inflated, others will be buried. That's why the target class matters more than any single clip. When the clips keep featuring the same classes, chemicals, power, rails, repair, you can be confident the campaign is coherent, not random. Bryansk fits that pattern. Facilities that fill Russia's magazines and keep its glide bomb corridors alive. Nodes that repair MLRS launchers and refit armor. Electrical substations that quietly feed the lines that reload the war. Expect tighter sequencing. A missile that shuts down a pump farm followed days later by a drone that ignites residuals. A rail choke hit just before a unit rotates. A power transformer struck the night before a forecast cold snap. Each action timed for maximum cumulative effect, not just maximum spectacle. Also expect a procurement answer. If Tomahawks remain off the table, partners can scale what's already in service. More Storm Shadow / SCALP, more spare kits, more aircraft integration, more stand-in decoys, more low-cost saturators to make each high-end shot count. And on the home front, watch Ukraine's own missile programs. The steady growth of domestically produced strike options that are cheaper than cruise missiles but smarter than a garden-variety drone. Ukraine's deep strike tempo will always ride on intel quality, weather windows, and aircraft survivability. Russia can still score hard. A lucky intercept, a jammed GPS window, or a mistimed approach can blunt a wave and cost assets that are painful to replace. And Russia is not done innovating. It will layer more mobile short-range systems at factory perimeters, train more crews on counter-UAV fire control, and invest in radar processing tuned to low RCS, low-altitude threats. None of that changes the geometry. Defending hundreds of points is harder than attacking a dozen that matter. There's also the political weather. Export approvals, replenishment contracts, election calendars, and budget fights all shape the cadence of resupply. But Bryansk's smoke says something simple. Capability already in Ukrainian hands can move the needle when applied with discipline. The Bryansk strike was a sentence in a longer paragraph, one that reads, Ukraine writes the rhythm now. You don't need to hit Moscow to change Moscow's math. You hit the places that make Moscow's missiles possible. That is what happened here. A cruise missile with a British pedigree and a Ukrainian flight plan found an industrial nerve. If it stays offline for weeks or months, future barges shrink. If Russia diverts defenses to protect similar sites, other targets, farther forward, must make do with less. If you care about the real levers in this conflict, the factories, the rails, the chemistry behind the firepower, stick with us. We break down what's hit, what it means, and what's next without the noise. Like this video so more people see it. Subscribe to stay on top of Ukraine's deep strike campaign.